Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to have back again, after a year, a little over a year even, Annie Delre. And let me tell you about Annie. She is a nationally board certified coach who's worked with hundreds of men and women over the past several years. Her clients range ages from teens to 84 years old. And although she has experience coaching men, Annie markets her coaching services towards women only. Because of her background as a graduate college admission counselor, she especially likes working with students and young professionals. Me too. So today we're going to talk about the topic that I always talk about, and that is confidence and self-esteem. And we could throw in there self-care, because that's a wellness part that both of us are involved with. That is definitely another part of the puzzle that makes us better in everything we do, better lives, better human beings. So please join me in once again welcoming my guest, Annie Delre. Annie, so happy to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
When I saw your name come up on my schedule, I was like, oh, yay. And then it was like, oh, wow, where is that paperwork on her?
Now I have to scramble a little. Yeah.
It always makes life interesting. That's cool. So we always start out with a really easy question and a couple easy ones. So first is, where do you call home? Where do you live?
San Diego, California.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My favorite place. And so the next piece is, we talked a little bit about your accolades and where, you, from a professional standpoint, where you are. But I'd love to share the journey that you had, that really, that catalyst that said, you know what, I'm going to step outside of the corporate norm and I'm going to venture in this entrepreneur field. What was that driver that changed you to want to address what you're most passionate about?
I realized a few things. If I'm like talking strictly business, it's when you work for a corporation, essentially you're capped at your income. They will always determine your worth. Your promotions are based on them. So, and I've worked with enough professionals to know that you can be the best, you could be the top performer and still not get what you deserve.
Yeah, very true.
So I think the last time I left a corporate job, I was making $72,000 and people thought I was absolutely crazy. So some of my friends make more. Other of my friends are making, let's say, like 50, 60. So they looked at me like I had two heads when I was like, I'm leaving the benefits, I'm leaving the 401k, I'm leaving this like solid paycheck. But I think when you believe in yourself and you truly have the confidence that you take that leap. It takes confidence. It does take confidence. But the same with me getting a master's in integrative wellness coaching, everyone thought I was crazy. Not one of my family or friends encouraged it. They're like, you're insane for doing that. But again, when you believe in yourself, you're willing to make that investment.
Well, and I think too, a lot of our family and friends are in the corporate world and they don't understand this whole, what would the drive be to do this, what we do. But I think a lot of times if you want to make a big impact, you could have been in that corporate office and you could have helped friends here, coworkers there, and made a small impact. But the ability for you to reach hundreds and thousands of people and, over time could be tens of thousands of people. You'd never do that at your corporate job.
No, I've had over 700 clients now.
Awesome.
That would have never happened in corporate. It
Yeah.
just wouldn't have. I couldn't see enough clients a day, or
Mhm.
it just wouldn't have worked out that way.
Right. And also you have more control over who your clients are.
Because what I did find at these corporations is they were sending a lot of people who needed a therapist, not a coach.
But
So
you're not a therapist, right?
I'm not a therapist, and I made a decision not to be a therapist. Like, I actually did more schooling in my master's than a therapist needs. I did
Mm,
more hours as a coach than a therapist needs to graduate. And that's not, therapy is a beautiful thing, but it is a completely different field for a reason. So, for example, I don't want to discuss trauma. I think
hmm.
there's a safe place for that, and people should definitely get support for it. But that's a huge difference between coaching and therapy.
Right, right. It's very true. So when we talk about well, I guess take a few moments to just explain kind of what you do as a coach.
So, I work with people on their professional and personal life. I will say more professionals, just because that happens to be the population I'm working with. But
Hmm.
sometimes I'll get a person who's retired, or sometimes I'll get a person who's strictly a student right now and hasn't entered the professional world yet. But especially with COVID, I worked with a lot of people on finding a job. And now that we are out of COVID, whatever the phrasing is, um, leaving their job and finding a
Yeah,
job they actually like. So they're like, all right, I'm done surviving.
yeah.
I'm so miserable here. Like, I just got off a client session earlier today with a gal I've been seeing for a few months, and she was passed up for a promotion that she was promised.
Mm.
And she's like, I'm getting out. No way. So I'm working with her actually on starting her own business, because we talked
Yep.
about corporate and the cap that you get there,
Yeah,
and they're in charge of
right.
your promotions.
That's exactly right. So how do you find the biggest wellness challenge as you're talking to people? And
Mm.
this again, post COVID too, but what's the wellness challenge that they have and how can they overcome that?
I would say time management, time and stress management, and they happen to be intertwined.
Yeah.
The lack of time management leads to stress, and their stress is leading to lack of time management. So that's the big theme. But if we were to spread that a little more, for example, let's focus on time management. Actually, both would be the digital world. So
Hmm.
stress because of having to be on, or even let's say their relationship with social media. So they're wasting time, and also they're getting stressed out because they're comparing themselves to everyone. Like,
Yeah.
LinkedIn is especially hard for professionals.
And and I think that's some of the stress is because they're trying to be, appear as perfect, the ideal perfect candidate that doesn't need uh, any growth or worth or development. And we all know that
Mhm.
you never stop. You should never stop developing. You should never stop growing. And sometimes it's more exciting to be able to discover new things as you go, as you grow. So I always did much better whenever I had a manager that challenged me with, I know you don't know how to do this. Here's a book, read this, and
Yeah.
watch that person, and then you'll get it. And they believed that I would, and so I just did what they said. And you know what? I did get
Mhm.
it, and I got good at it. And then they challenged me again.
But that's the up leveling, right? That is the exciting part. that's how I know if my clients are, I don't want to say going to be successful in coaching because anyone can if they put in effort, but it's the people that already have high status that want more. Like I
Yeah.
had a lawyer who was a top performer at his firm, and he's like, I'm doing great. I always get promoted. People don't like communicating with me. Let's work on communication. And I was like, all right. He's like, I don't need more money. I don't need better relationships with my family or friends. I need better communication at work. And I highly respect people who can see their, I don't
Mm,
even like the word weaknesses, it's just areas that are challenges that they can get better at.
that's right. It's a lot of times it's with communication in that professional, it's they're so focused on a task that they forget the people that are part of that task. So
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
they have issues. then they need you.
Then they seek care. Yeah.
Mhm. So we are talking about confidence and self-esteem. So for you, what are your thoughts on how to build confidence in others?
I would say surround yourself with other confident people
Hmm.
because not confident people will drag you down with them.
Yeah.
And like, for example, my clients are so happy that I'm their cheerleader because some of them have no one else in their life on their team.
Mm.
And coming from a person who used to have a circle of people that weren't growth mindset or weren't encouraging, who looked at
Yeah.
me like I was absolutely nuts, they just tear you down. They
Yeah.
make you second guess. They make you think this is too scary, They start spitting statistics at you and of the negativity, right? Like I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's like 5% of businesses pass the first year, something like that.
Mm.
But as opposed to want to be the 1% or like want to be the
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah. You do have to, I always say, choose who's at your table, because
Ooh.
if you've got those negative people, they either are going to depress you or, as you say, keep you down, and
Mhm.
that starts to wear off on you or wear on you. So you definitely want to do that. I always say that it's really, to have confidence, I think it takes a lot of courage in
Ooh,
doing things that you don't know how to do, but you need to know how to do. And so you say yes.
that's a
So
perfect word for it. Another thing I tell people, because I think also humbleness comes with it, of don't be the smartest person in the room. You're in the wrong room.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. I say that too.
Surround yourself with smarter people.
I had worked with somebody who enjoyed being the smartest person in the room, and he enjoyed making you small, which was so terrible. You could tell he was enjoying when you didn't know how to answer a question, or you didn't know
Ugh.
um the best way to phrase it, and it was like, why would you do that? Whenever I work with people in their public speaking, it's like I do everything to show you how you could do it a little better, but in a way that encourages them to want to try again, not to think, oh God, I'm not going to go ever in a room where that person is again. I'm never going to open my mouth when he's in that room. And that's not a
Mhm.
great way to be. Absolutely not a great way to be.
Right, totally. Yeah. They, especially when you have that fear of talking up in meetings or feeling less
Mhm.
than.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that, because that goes into your self-esteem.
Mhm.
Think about how many times or how many people out there sit in a room, and they're, maybe a team meeting, or, a small group, and there's somebody that is very confident, and they're just saying, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And this is the goal, and this is the action we'll take. And you may be sitting there and thinking, well, no, we could do it this way. We'll still get to the goal, but it would be maybe better, maybe more people friendly, maybe more empathetic in the way that it's done, but you don't say anything. And then somebody else says exactly what you were thinking, but they had the courage to do it and the confidence to do it and the self-esteem. You know, if that person who had the first thought said, you know, this is how we're going to do it, and you give your thoughts and they say, well, no, this is how we're going to do it. Well, okay, there you go. But if it doesn't work for them, then you can be happy about that. But you know, I sat in too many meetings when I was quiet, and I just decided, and it was mostly in my 50s that I was like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to be that
That's a
quiet
hard
person.
no. Yeah.
Yeah, no. No, I don't need, you know, I don't need you to threaten me that I'm not going to get promoted. It's like, I don't care about promotion anymore. I just want to make a difference in and make sure my work's good. It lifts so much stress from you. So how else can people really start to work on being more confident and understanding the value? I want to talk a little bit about self-care and you know, we spend so much time saying things to ourselves that we wouldn't allow anyone else to say to us, and that kind of breaks down our self-esteem too. So let's talk a little bit about that, and maybe what you're seeing now after COVID, where people were not in community and maybe got out of practice at practicing self-care and you know.
Yeah. So something I do with essentially all of my clients, I'd say 95% at least, and these are clients who come to me for personal or professional growth, is having them identify their values.
Yeah.
Because life is so much easier when you live your values.
Mm-hmm.
It's just infinitely easier to make all decisions once
Yeah.
you have them. So if you value respect, then you'll most likely start learning boundaries. So for example, like, you will not talk to me like that. That's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to end this conversation. If you're not able to talk to me with respect, we're not talking. And just saying it flat, like, you don't have to curse, you don't have to get angry, you don't have to raise your voice, just so matter of fact.
Right.
Of what I have found, and this isn't to be sexist, but what I have found is hearing about people in meetings of men talking over the women. So what I teach clients to do is just say, excuse me, I'm not finished talking. I'm going to finish my thought.
That's right.
And a lot of men, they
Absolutely.
say, are stunned when they do it for the first time, just absolutely stunned. So, and that's not to put someone in their place essentially, but that is to, to build a strong boundary.
Right. Right. And the, you know, there could be a repercussion about that, but that just gives you the opportunity in private to have the conversation about what your boundaries are and why that was wrong. And, you know, and just let them know that if they do it again, that's the same reaction you're going to have.
Yeah.
I think too often they just don't think that you're going to say anything. And then they think, well, if I reprimand them, then they'll never do it again. Well, you know, then I will just leave. I will
Yeah.
put in for another job, another department, another group. I do not have to work with a jerk.
That's exactly it. I respect myself enough to do this. I respect the people in this room enough to know that, like, they will also respect me because they know that I have these boundaries, and it's just unacceptable. So
Very
another
true.
example is loyalty. What I have found is some people will say loyalty is there. I'll give two examples. So they'll say loyalty, but they're still in a relationship with someone who's cheated on them. And that's not me judging. That's literally me. That's me just saying facts of that's the opposite of loyalty. If you're in
Yeah.
Not
Monogamous?
monotonous. Monogamous.
Monogamous. Neither one of us can talk today. Let's stay away from big
Exactly.
words.
Seriously, let's just stay away from them. Or a boss who steals your ideas and never gives you credit. Well, of course, you're not going to feel aligned. You're living against one
Yeah,
of your top values.
right. And I think that, many of the highly successful entrepreneurs that I've spoken with, they all say that. It's like, these are my values, and no longer do I struggle with what decision I'm going to make, if I'm going to work with that person, or if I'm going to pass that client by, or do that project. If they don't align with your core values, then it's a no-brainer.
It's so true. And I think that, I mean, to tie it around, I think that comes with confidence
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
also coming from a place of abundance as opposed to scarcity, as opposed to like, I have to work with them because I need this money. But when you're
right.
confident and come from a place of abundance, you're like, I can confidently decline that. And I'm also confident something better will come along.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of work out there, a lot of people out there.
Mhm.
And so all of this kind of ties to what we're talking about. We have work and we have life. And some people always try to do a work-life balance, which I think is impossible and impractical. So talk to me about your thoughts on work-life balance.
I love that you asked this question. I really do, because this is one of my favorite things to teach. So I teach clients a mindset shift. So what we hear is balance. We're thinking a balance beam, 50
Yes.
50. But if you were to ask people, do you want to work 50% of your life and spend 50% of your time with family and friends?
Mm.
I've, in the hundreds of people I've asked, one person, it was this tech guy who didn't like people, who didn't have any family or friends. Like he chose that. He was like work. And I respect that. I have never heard another person say, I
Yeah.
wanted 50 50.
Yeah.
So what I ask them to do or teach, I guess, is let's take the word balance away because it's just a myth. It's just a myth. And let's change that to harmony. How can we have a
Yeah.
harmonious life? How can we work and get money? It's silly to think, I mean, unless you're independently wealthy, like, and you don't need to work. We, for the most part, most people need money. So I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't work or work is so silly that we spend time there, but more of you can also have a life though.
Yeah.
You can also have a life.
Yeah. I think I you have some people that as soon as cell phones came out, yes, I am that old. As soon as cell phones came out, the I'm available 24/7 idea was kind of instituted, and so at any moment you could get called, and it it's it's just one of those things that as you first meet with your company, your manager, and you are talking about even in your interview, if you're talking about, what is your policy, what is your practice, you can also set those expectations that, like I don't take calls on Sunday. That's totally family time, and so I'm not going to do any work on Sunday. Or maybe it's my kids have ball games on the weekend, so I'm not going to be available to do things. I can do projects, but it's only for so many hours, in that time frame. But it sets expectations, and if that's not going to work, then that's a choice. You know, then maybe you're not the
I
right
couldn't agree
person to
more.
be. And
I'm
I
sorry, I
and I
didn't mean to
think
talk over you.
no, no, that's okay. I was just going to say that not everybody really thinks about that. I think a lot of high-powered single people, maybe, or even young families, where they're trying to make a mark for their family, they want to do everything for their family, and so then they work, and they realize at some point in time that they missed a whole lot. And then they have regret. And so I think the talk about the work-life harmony is a great thing. It's like, what is important for you and your family and your job? And can you do all three well without making one suffer?
I totally agree. So two things about that.
Yeah.
One is when I'm doing, because as I mentioned, a lot of my clients are looking for new jobs or new careers. And that's one of the questions we practice when we do interview practice together is,
Mm-hmm.
what are the expectations for the workload here? Do we work
Yeah.
weekends? Am I supposed to be available at night through email? Am I expected to take calls? Like, I tell them, ask the interview at the end of the interview when they say, do you have any questions for us? Make sure that's one, because you don't want to be a month in and be like, no one told me I work every Saturday. No one
Mm-hmm.
told me I'd be at my computer until 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So asking before you get too far into it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, of course, I forget. Oh, is I did parenting coaching for about 9 months. I took a lot of parents strictly for either coaching their kids or them in parenting. And that was the theme. I'm missing so much of my kid's life. I can't go to softball games. I'm missing dance
Mm-hmm.
recitals. I'm not taking my kid to karate anymore. I had to hire someone to drop them at school and pick them up. My nanny sees them more than me. And
Mm-hmm.
some of them were coming to me and like, it's too late. I'm like, it's never too late. Your kiddo's still
Yeah.
at home. Like,
Right. Right.
not too late.
Yeah. As the younger generations in college and trying to figure out what career you want, you have to think about that, because there are some careers that you don't have as much leeway to say no. You know, if you're a surgeon and you're trying to save someone's life and it's taken a little bit more time than you anticipated, you may miss that dance recital. But, how many of them will you miss? Yeah.
And how much, especially what another thing I found with the parents was what a wedge it put into their relationship with their partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's why time management is so important. If I
Yes,
was
that
to
is true.
circle back to that,
Circle back
that's
to
why
time.
we focus a lot: priorities, values, and time management.
Yeah, for sure. So as you work with the young people, maybe in high school or college, oftentimes I think that they have the beginnings of stress by being overwhelmed, just like, oh my gosh, there's so much information, there's so many people telling me what to do, how to do it, and they just want to escape. So how are you helping them navigate these important years of their lives?
I love that you use the word escape, because I truly think that's what it is. They're looking to escape. And I'll just use one of the most common themes that I see with the younger generation: social media.
Yeah,
Social media. It, it's this comparison game that they can do morning to night. It's an addiction that's in their hand.
yeah,
Majority of kids have it. And if they're still so young, they have an iPad. Like,
yep,
so
very true.
it's the digital awareness, and adults suffer with it. So how do we
Mhm.
expect kiddos to be good, especially if as a parent we're not able to control ourselves? How are we to teach our kids to control themselves?
Mhm.
So um I think that's really hard. I think that's why there's eating disorders in children. I think that's why um there's no rest. Like, for
Yeah.
example, when I grew up, I don't think we had cell phones until high school. Like, my late high school is when it became more common for people to have cell
Mhm.
phones. And I would read in my room every day. The only time I
Yeah.
would really see people is at school.
Yeah. Same with me. I did chores and read, and I did
Mhm.
crafts. I like to do crafts, and I think all of those things let your mind rest. Even doing, cleaning the house or doing crafts, you're doing something that's repetitive, and it allows you to have your mind free to be creative. When I get stuck with a problem, um, I'll clean house because scrubbing the floor gives me usually the opportunity I need to figure out what my next step will be.
I'm right there with you. Actually, it's so funny we're talking about reading, actually. Um, so I hadn't read a fiction book in probably 15 years.
Oh
Last 15
no.
years, all I did was read nonfiction. That's all I did.
Mm-hmm.
And last summer, for the first time, I read a fiction book and I inhaled it. And I forgot how much it means to read a book that doesn't mean anything. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm using the right verbiage, but like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm
Absolutely.
not doing it to grow. I'm not doing it to learn something new. I'm actually doing it to just unplug.
And to be
And
entertained, take you to another, it goes back to the
totally.
escape too, it's take you out of your world to escape to somewhere else. If you have a good
Mhm.
book, that's going to do that for you.
Yeah. So and although that's another thing that I talk to clients about actually
Hmm.
is prioritizing creativity and doing something
Nice.
outside of, especially what I really encourage them to do actually is try something they are not good at and
Yeah.
just sit and not being good. You're not getting paid. No one's seeing this work. You're not getting graded on it. Just sit in the mindset of this doesn't matter and it's okay if I'm terrible at it.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people that do puzzles,
Mhm.
that's for them because it's such a challenge, but it's a challenge, them against the puzzle, who's gonna win.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it
I did
does
it with
give you,
embroidery a few months ago, and
oh
that was
yeah.
hilarious. Hilarious.
I did embroidery when I was growing up too. Gosh. So, in the last minute or so,
Mhm.
what would your self development advice be for a teenager? Because you and I, we both work with the young folks. And so this is important for if you're a parent of a teenager or if you have a cousin, if you're a few years older than this teenager. I think the teenagers right now they had 3 years of not being teenagers. And when they look at school, I know some of the kids that I teach, it's like, oh, I don't want to, I've been in school all day. I don't want to learn anything else. And it's like, yeah, but I'm teaching you to be able to communicate better so that it will help you to get a paycheck later. So what self-development
Yeah.
advice do you give to teenagers that might appeal to them and, maybe gamification type of things or whatnot?
I would say my number one suggestion is get a mentor. And it doesn't even have to be someone you know. It could be someone that you watch their YouTube videos or listen to their podcast. And I'm
Hmm.
not talking about the Kardashians as your mentor. I'm saying like a person who, I don't want to be disrespectful, a person who is respectable, who is knowledgeable, and who you can learn from.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be a professor in a suit and tie or like it,
Yeah.
but follow someone who is healthy, mind and body.
Yeah. That's great advice. I, as I post my podcast, one of the things, that I believe it's, um, YouTube, it asks, is this for kids? And
Oh,
I always have to say no. But it really, in my mind, in my heart's heart, I think, yes, it is. If kids would listen to this perfect advice that's being shared for adults, how great would that be? What a beautiful stepping stone they would have to being so much ahead of their peers, because they had this person who's been there, done that, wearing the t-shirt and is openly sharing their ideas and technology and tips.
Mm-hmm. Especially, and I hate to say this, but especially if it's not their parent, only because some kids
Yeah.
have a great relationship with their parents, but others, they will do anything not to take their advice, or the total opposite, even though the parent's coming from a genuine, knowledgeable, loving place. So, but
Yeah,
but
that's
having to
true.
be a sibling or a cousin or uncle,
Mhm.
teacher, whoever it may be. I'm not saying parents can't do it, but from coaching kids, what I have heard is they're not going to listen no matter what the parent says.
In our experience as parents, you're right.
You see
Somebody
that?
else. And you know, it's funny. I have now my parents are in their late 80s, and it's the same thing. Like they'll listen to somebody on YouTube or the internet, and before they'll take my advice sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, maybe if I post this on YouTube, they'll listen to it.
There you go.
It's funny. All right. Well, it's always so great to chat with you, Annie. And I'm sure if what we talked about today has resonated with anyone out there, you're going to want to contact Annie. So I'm going to share my screen as always. If you are just listening, you know, I will give you the contact information. So the website is Annie Delre, that's DELRE, AnnieDelre.com. And Facebook is Annie Delre Coach. Instagram is Coach Annie Delre. And LinkedIn is Annie Delre. YouTube, you can search Annie Delre. And Pinterest is Annie Delre. See, don't you love her? She did everything so easy for you guys. I'm going to turn it over to Annie to talk to you about things that you'll find when you go to her website or any social media that she spends the most time, so you can be able to DM her or get some more instantaneous contact. Go ahead.
Okay, so on my website, you'll find a free wellness manual, over 100 pages. I mean, if you're looking at the screen, you'll also see it, but it's on all different areas of life, finance, social. There is a time management section. And I think that's a great place, especially for people who are a bit overwhelmed and
Yeah.
don't even know where to start. Um, but I do encourage people to go to my Instagram, only because I have been spending more attention there, and I'm giving tips and tricks in all my videos. Some of them are just humorous and a little, but for the most part, I'm talking about networking. I'm talking about confidence and how to be better at communication. So yeah, I would encourage checking out the Instagram.
Very good. Annie, as always, thank you so much for being such a great guest. I love chatting with you. You're so much fun and give great advice. And so thanks for being a great guest today.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for this opportunity again.
Again, yes. And we'll do it again at sometime in the future. This unfortunately or fortunately is a subject that you can continue to talk about, and there will be a new audience that needs to hear it. So definitely self-confidence, self-esteem are topics that never go old. So as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.